Mamangda course book ki akoi chapter manga chapter number 1 2 3 4 5 loikhra matungda hujik chapter number 6 the saga of a mountaineer and explorer haibasi paminasi Sir Edmund Hillary, the lanky New Zealand mountaineer and explorer, won worldwide acclaim in 1953 by becoming the first to scale the 29,035-foot summit of Mount Everest, the world's tallest peak with Tenzing Norgay, the Sherpa. Adumba New Zealand gi masa chaptak tawraga mayang le akhoi marep wangba New Zealand macha Edmund Hillary hari misasina 1953 da akhoi gi prithvi gi laimai thakta gi khwai gi wangba chingdol ni hariba Mount Everest si yawangam ki mahaka loinana yawmina khiba misa aduna Tenzing Norgay kawi mahakna asagi Nepal gi adumba chingkaroi ama khangne hariba mai pakpa sina mahak prithvi sindhuna masak khangba misa ma oikhi. In the annals of great heroic exploits, the conquest of Mount Everest by Sir Edmund and Norgay ranks with the first trek to the South Pole by Roald Amundsen in 1911 and the first non-stop transatlantic flight by Charles A. Lindbergh in 1927. Adumba ngasagi akhoi mai pakpa achouba akhoi ichang thoba thodok ngasagi adumba thong kaya singi lagta hairiba Edmund Hillary amadi Tenzing Norgay na Mount Everest yoruba sisu adugumba singdugi lagta challi hairiba ngasagi ichang thoba thona leiba ngasagi mating phudokba chat adumba akhoi changba thong haiba tare natragana madugi thodok haiba tare madu karamaga makhoi pangkhak oibagi hairagadi adumba 1911 da Roald Amundsen kawba mana akhoi South Pole yobungam khiba adumak asagi singthanari adugumba amani haina singthanari Edmund Hillary amadi Tenzing Norgay na asagi Mount Everest yobungam khibasi aduga loina na asagi Charles A. Lindbergh kawba misagamana akhoi 1927 da transatlantic flight asagi lepa leitana asagi Atlantic Ocean gi mathakta plane paira chatkhiba ngamba adumba ichang thoba sibaki daba thong sing aduga pangkhak oina launari. By 1953, nearly a century after British surveyors had established that the Himalayan peak on the Nepal-Tibet border was the highest point on the earth, many climbers considered the mountain all but unconquerable. Hairiba 1953 da Edmund Hillary amadi Tenzing Norgay na Mount Everest ki maton khwaidagi matol du yaudringai mamangai dadi hairiba chingdol ase kanaguma matana madu yauba oithokloi haina khanaramba amakhagnebo hairiba matol asina prithvi lemai khwaidai wangbani haibasidi asagi 1953 gi chahi chamai mamangda British ki surveyors kayana putho amabani madugi akhoi taklamabane khwaidagi prithvi gi lemai da khwaidai wangba chingdol se hojiki Mount Everest na oire habisi aduna hairiba awangba chingdol asibu yobungam baibase masidi oithoktabani haidana mipum khudimona khanarubune adubu 1953 dadi Edmund Hillary amadi Tenzing Norgay na madu yobungam khre. The summit was 5.5 vertical miles above sea level, up where today's jets fly, and other worldly place of yawning crevasses and 100-mile-an-hour winds of perpetual cold and air so thin that the human brain and lungs do not function properly in it. High mafam ase adumba mile 5.5 miles ngasagi prithvi lamai thaktagi onma matamda akoi awang bonma matamda samudragi imaidagi constant oiba value ama launaraga oli haiba adumba masing adu kaya oige haba matamda 5.5 miles oi hai prithvi lamai thaktagi onba pot khudimakse samudragi imaidagi akoi magi standardized value ama lepaga launai haiba masing adu yangpom da mile manga ga makhai hen wang na leba hujik tang asagi jet plane painari mafam asini hairi mafam ase adugi matik top pa asagi mayam ga manada ba hairi ba nukshit ka si marang kaina phangda ba ajudagi asagi akoi basi asagi un ngakta ta ba adumba yam na asagi akoi ching oiraga su irai laina ka ba nongai ba ching nataba adum mafam amane hairi mafam ase adum matam chupada ingduna ta leba adumba yamna khudong thininga ba mafam amane nushikasi akan masitpa mafam amane. Numerous Everest expeditions had failed Dozens of experienced mountaineers, including many Sherpas, the Nepalese people famous climbers, had been killed, buried in avalanches, or lost and frozen in sudden storms that roared over the dizzying escarpments. Adumba hairiba mafam aduda yauba ngamnanaba haiduna ngasagi miyoi kayana honaba leikhi adu punamak maithiba loina nangkhi madugi maithiba khaknatana ngasagi khongchara duda ngasagi makoina honajaruba duda laibak thibadagi akoigi un mapak na ninghai raktuna nanba natragana siba adumba laibak thiba kayama thokre aduga ngasagi over the dizzying escarpment sai ngasagi koi kok ngau ningai oiba awang ba ngasagi maton du koi loroi wang ba adumba saktam adumba masak haitare mawong haibetare. One who vanished in 1924 was George Leigh Mallory. When he was asked why he tried to climb Everest, he answered, "Because it is there." His body was found in the ice 75 years later in 1999, about 2,000 feet below the summit. Adumba ngasagi chingdol adubu yobang ngamnana honakiba misak amagi maming palabadi George Leigh Mallory haiba misak asi nisu amani mahakna 1924 da adumba ngasagi prithibigi laimai thakti khwaidai wangba chingdol asi yobang ngamnana honarame mangonda mahakna karidamukta mafam ase chaning libano hain hangba mikupta mahakna leiriba mafam ado ai yongningbagi damuktani hana ngasagi leirambagi damuktani ai yongninglibani haidana mahakna su phongdokhiba lei adubu mahak ki khongchat aduda mahak ngasagi mahak asi bakchang thiba phangdana masi sikhibani adubu kona chai humdra mangai matungda mahak asi bakchang adudi thengnarakhi adumna ngasagi chingdol asibu yoba haibase aduki matik kudong thiningai ba oithokpa watpa amani. Sir Edmund and Norgay were part of a Royal Geographical Society Alpine Club expedition led by Colonel Henry Cecil John Hunt as his group that included a dozen climbers, 35 Sherpa guides and 350 porters carrying 18 tons of food and equipment. Their route was the treacherous south shore facing Nepal. Adumba ngasagi Sir Edmund Hillary madi Tenzing Norgay na ching akogi Himalaya ki chingdol Mount Everest ki chingdol khwai ki wang base ka ki base makoi ani khak tar chatkhibanate makoi group amoina team moina chatkibani hairiba group na targa team adugi luching bana ngasai Colonel Cecil Hunt hairiba sina luching khibani makoi na chatkibam tamda chingkaroi punna moi tarani thoi yawi aduga loina na ngasai makoi ga chanmina bada akogi 35 Sherpa guides hairgadi adumba Nepali chingka bahiba chingkaroi kuntram ngang loina na ngasai lamjing lamtak pa loina na makoi kuntram nga aduga chingkaroi trai thoi duga loina na ngasai makoi na khongchat aduda akogi chana thangna na ba sijina ga polam sing puna na ba adumba porter sargadi kuli gi tawpa ngamba lever haitare adumba chahum yang khema loina na makoi group oina team oina makoi pandam amagi makhada tholakpa adumba kanglup ne makoina kaga duriba maike se adumba Nepal ga mayongna ba akoigi khudong am thininga ba akoi thajaninga oida ba akoi kari worka dage kari orang dage haibasi tangdang ba khangba ngamda ba adumba yamna akoigi maike tor hariba adolum dage ka ba hokhibani kha thangba tor hais dage. After a series of climbs by coordinated teams to establish higher camps on the icy slopes and the perilous rock ledges, Tom Bodilon and Dr. Charles Evans was the first team to attempt the summit. They gave up at 28,720 feet, 315 feet from the top. Masai adumba makoi group moi chingkaroi trying to ina karakhiba khongchara duda akoi ihan hana chingdol asibu yoba ngamnana ba honakhiba miyoi ani dudi kanano haibam tamda Dr. Charles Evans haibamga Tom Bodilon haribuga makoi ani sinani haribu makoi ani sina ngasai karakpa si akoigi makoi trying to ina haitare makoi chingkaroi kanglup moi trying to moi group tuna karakhibasi akoigi lepa leitana hakta makhong dena matun bawo kana no hona banate makoi na thengkang moi kem saraga ngasai amana amuk hana karaga amuk potharaga akon baduna amuk hamuk mathang karaga mana mathang makoi si moi coordination namagi makhada kanarakpane adugi ihan hana matun yoba ngamnana ba akoigi honaba misak tu kanano hargadi Tom Bodilon amadi ngasai Dr. Charles Evans hariba sini adu makoi ani di ngasai maton du yogado phut chahung ga tranga khaktama ngair kanda makoi se ngamdabadagi makoi se leihokibani. Beaten back by exhaustion, a storm that shrouded them in ice and oxygen tank failures. Ado ngasai makoina phut chahong ga tranga khakta ngaisila mikup tuda yam kai na wasilak pamadi makoi oxygen mananga na pura ga chaliba sor hon bada mateng pangna na ba yap happy ba oxygen tanki du makoi da chapchana supply tor ko ngamakta bada makoi je hena choksin choktharak bada makoi ji handorakhibani halakibani. At 6:30 a.m. on May 29, 1953, cheered by clearing skies, they began the final attack, carrying enough oxygen for 7 hours and hoping to pick up 2 partly filled tanks left by Evans and Bodilon. They moved out, roped together, cutting toe holes with their ice axes. First one man leading and then the other. They inched up a steep knife-edged ridge southeast of the summit. Adumba May tang kumapan 1953 gi ayuki pung tor makai tam tam da ngasagi atiasi electric lang na ngasagi yam na mek seng na leiban numit amada makoi ani aduna ngasagi Edmund Hillary amadi Tenzing Norgay aduna jingdol asi yauna na ba makoi akoi gi hona khibani makoi na kar khiba matam da makoi masagi loina jarpa oxygen tanki adui mathak da ngasagi Charles Evans ka body loan gana akoi season ramdraba ngasai khara yaurami ba oxygen tanki duga loinana makoi ka ba haurakibani adu makoi amaga thori thunaraga mathang amana mu hana chingkhat amana mu konna karpudra mu hek chingkhat admaina makoi ni mathang kanar pag loinana cutting toe holes with their ice access adi makoi makut pairi ba kulai sing aduna ngasai makoi khongda pham adu ngasai khongdon khara dor su tabe ana ba natraga makoi khongop tu gi maton khara da su tabe ana na ba oi ching akoi gi un gi mamai da hak tana ngasai karpa adubane adumba yamna ngamba knife its reach southeast of the summit din mai ngasai matol khwai matol udugi khanong pokthang ma saruk tagi makhose yam ngamba saruk udugi makhose ka ba horkhibani. Halfway up, Simon discovered soft snow under them. Immediately he realized that they were on dangerous ground. Suddenly, with a dull breaking noise, an area of crust all around him about 6 feet in diameter broke off. He slid backward 20 or 30 feet before regaining a hold. It was a nasty shock. He could look down 10,000 feet between his legs. Adai makoi ani na kakalakbudu da ngasai Edmund Hillary na magi yogada tangkhai walingai da matolu yogada tangkhai walingai ngasai mana leiri mafam du dagi ngasai akoi yamna hop lawba ungi mafam khak thenarami hairi mafam asi mana thunamak mana gyan tarami madu masi khudong thiningai oi haidin mana hairi mafam asi mana parak chenthokhi mikupta hairiba un hop law mafam do pro ana ngasai kaida ga ngasai akoi gi dull breaking noise har ga amukta krang krang ana makhon thona akta amukta khudak tak khang kai bana ta mathang kare toroga kai gi bam tam da mana hana lepam mafam du gi futtaru mukki diameter da ajiki ninghai gi hairiba simana aduki matik yamna akoi gi natai cha da ba adum ba pakhat pa kininga ba mong da akoi gi phut lising tara hena luba ma akoi gi lokha ma oirami. Farther up, they encountered what was later named the Hillary Steep. Adai the mathang kakalak buduna mana mafam khak thenagi hairim pham su man Hillary Steep haina kaunai Ptolemy, a sheer face of rock and ice 40 feet high that Simon called the most formidable obstacle on the ridge. Ngasai makoina chingmai dugi ngasai lei dana makoina sum kakalak budugi manung da khwaidagi henna khudong thininga ba apal ba chauba amakhang ni haina mana Hillary Steep asibu kaurami hairiba sing asagi akoi kaaba matamda makoi singjangna kaina thabada waba aduki matik nung ngak toy ba adumba akoi phut nifu muk wangba ungi akanba akoi keno haitare masa ama haitare madu makoina kakhan pa matamda yam awa mayang nakhiba aduna ngasagi maduda akoi singjangji tha kaaba si khudong chada banina. But they found a vertical crack and managed to climb it by bracing feet against one side and backs against the other. Ngasagi akoi kakhuoi karoi chappaga leibam phong da makoi ni se ajiki du da akoi chingjang thar ka badi adamina mai makhut na manang nga ngasai hojiki da chila kakhala ami. And the last few years to the summit were relatively easy. Adubu ngasai matol yoram da adagi ngasai saruk khara madi yam thoina aruba yam khudong thinga badi oiramdre adum khara ngasai mayawerap maunda moida araiba I think as I light up to light khara amakak oirame. As he chipped steps, he wondered how long they could keep it up. Then he realized that the reeds, instead of rising ahead, now dropped sharply away. He looked upward to see a narrow reeds running up to a sharp point. A few more whacks of the ice axe and they stood on the summit. Adai makoisi kayam kuina sumaina sum kaaba leiba ngamgidoino na makoisi waba horpa mikuptuda ngasai mangna bhabo ere madu makoina ngasai yauri mafam asidi ngasai ngammaga sum kakhalambadaidi akoi angambadugi nemdharakpa saruk amuk akoi kumdhabagi mawong makhaman uba horpasida makoina khara yaw khara kakhala kandadi pura matol labdo moi thungami matolu thunglami. The vast panorama of the Himalayas lay before them, fleecy clouds and the pastel shades of Tibet to the north, and in all directions sweeping ranks of jagged mountains, cloud-filled valleys, great natural amphitheaters of snow and rock, and the glittering Kangsung Glacier 10,000 feet below. Aduna ngasagi makoina maton kwai matol dudagi lepo yang tharpa mikupta adugi matik fajaraba ngasagi lechil mafol ngasagi akogi lasing mafol pai bugumna pai urame aduga loina ngasagi mia akogi Tibet adomda mina tabagi ngasagi low ubagi kari adagi ising uba phangba kudimak to ngasagi different varieties of colors ngasai different colors man makha du uba matamda yana phajaba saktam ma oirami aduga ngasai mana khwai ma tol du yengtharkom tamda de chingji pareng ngasai mana uba ngamlami aduga loina na ngasai ikoi budu ching ngakta ngai ra ngasai mathakna yang hang ba dum amphitheaters ngaktoina mana urami aduga langtrik langbang ngasai akoigi un mapak du dagi nungsa mangana yeisilaga phudorok ba dum ba akoigi Kangsung Glacier amasu mana ajiki mana lepi mafam dudi phut lising taramuk chatharaga leiba amasu yamna ningthijaba mongda uba phanglami. There was a modest celebration. Chamchamna makoi ani matol yoba ngambagi thauramam pangthuami. They shook hands and then, casting Anglo-Saxon formalities aside, they thumped each other on the back until forced to stop from lack of breath. Ade makoi ni konjindana ade makoi ni thaganadana pop thanadana masada ade di harau phongdoklami. Adai makoi soron makhara warapudi momoisi ajiki moigi akogi harau bagi pangthokpa kuma moi thoramdu tenjelami. They took photographs and left a crucifix for Hunt, the expedition leader. Norgay, a Buddhist, buried biscuits and chocolate as an offering to the gods of Everest. Then they ate a mint cake, strapped on their oxygen tanks, and began to climb down. Adai moi photo kapaga adai ngasagi Jesus Christ ki cross tu ngasagi makoi gi luchingba colonel Hunt gi ikai khumna bud point jung thambiramaga ngasagi makoi Norgay hariba Nepali dudi ngasagi Buddhism chatpani namana ngasagi char thanaba purokpa biscuits khara de chocolate khara du laida katpagum ngasagi moina laida khudol tamami aduga makoina purokpa mint cake adu ngasagi akhoi gi charga makoi se makoi gi oxygen cylinder du manam da posilaga amuk ching dudagi moi chingdol dudi kumdaba horami. 4 days later, the news was flashed around the world as a coronation gift of sorts to Queen Elizabeth II, who was crowned in Westminster Abbey on June 2. Adumba makoina ching karuba mai pakpi thoramaduga loinana Maharani akogi Elizabeth II asina Maharani oirakibagi matamduga ani si chap chanarami aduna ngasagi Maharani duda makoina tamjaba khudol gangi pankak oirami. The Queen promptly made Imam Hillary a Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire, while Norgay received the George Medal of Britain and other honors. Makoini gi adumba yamna chauba mai pakpa du bikai khumna bud poina Maharani na asagi Imam Hillary bo adumba Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire hadna chauba mingtholama makoi gi lamdam adu khwaidai wangba civilian na piba mingtholama mangonda sinarami aduga ngasagi Norgay na adumba Britain gi akhoi gi masak naiba mi da piba George Medal Award adu pidana mak bikai khumnaki loina na atopa maikai khuding dagi makoi ani bu bikai khumna bud poina mana kayama la thongnarami. Worldwide heroes overnight they were greeted by huge crowds in India and London. Adedi makoi si adugamatik yam chauna mai pakpa adum masak naiba misama yam thuna oirakpa mikuptuda mipung khudimak na makoi bu taram na opirami India da thunglama tamda su amadi ngasagi India dagi makoi makhata na makoi lamdam London lomda chakhim tamda su makoi bu miyam na adugimatik pam na amadi taram na onarami. A controversy over whether Simon or Norgay had been first to stand on the summit threatened briefly to mar the celebrations, but Hunt declared that they reached together as a team. Adubu miyoi bising asagi miwangang na ba adagi asoiba thiba pamba oibana asai makhoi ani ge marakta kana na chingdol adubu yobungam kibno haibesigi kana karigumba khara makhoi nimphun ngangna ba horokbuda makhoi gi khongchar adugi khwaidi makok oikhiba adumba Colonel Cecil Hunt aduna makhoi animangna chap manaba pungphamda chap manaba mikupta chingdol adugi maton adu yobungam kibane haidana mahana phongdoktuna makhoi animangna hujik phawba leiba hujik phawda leiba record ki matungena Mount Everest ki hana matol yoba ngam khyu misak ase Inman Hillary amadi Tenzing Norgay oire. Simon continued his life of adventure climbing mountains and once crossing the Antarctic continent, lecturing and making public appearances and serving as New Zealand's High Commissioner to India, Bangladesh and Nepal from 1985 to 1988. Adumba asagi adventure that Hawaii yaujaba Inman na mahagi mapunchi dugi makhatarpa dugi mai pakhirba thodo dugi adumba khongchar dugi matungda su chingka amadi ngasagi ato pa ngasagi adventurous oba thawong kayama adum makhatana ma khongchar kayama chatharayami loinana mahaki adumba experience kaya adubu miyam na pam na tana bana maram oiduna mahna lam lan na chatuna ngasagi akoigi lecture pirami aduga mahaki sinpham oinadi mahakpu igai khumna upoina adumba Bangladesh India amadi Nepal gi akoigi New Zealand gi commissioner high commissioner sumaunda phamthol ngasagi pham sinarami. In more than 5 decades since the first successful assault on what climbers call the top of the world, more than 3,000 people including Sir Edmunds, St. Peter and Norgay and Jamling have reached the summit of Everest while more than 200 have died in the attempt, 8 of them in a 1996 expedition that was savaged by a blizzard. Adumba sahi 1953 da makoina chingdol adu ngasagi Himalaya chingdol Mount Everest ki matol adu yauror matungda adugi matung chahi yang khailom da di se miyoi kaya na ngasagi matol adu yobangam khre miyoi lising ahum hena hairu matol asi yobangam khre adugi manungda makoi gi macha Inman Hillary gi na macha Peter aduga Norgay gi na macha Jamling hairu sisu haiba chingdol adu yobangam khiba miyoi lising ahum dui manungda chali aduga haiba chingdol asi yaunana ba hona khibada miyoi chani gi mathaktasu asiba nangkhre aduga Nepal amadi amukta pulap oina 1996 ki khongchata lekhidabane madu ngasai adumba nonglei nuksut akanba makhak lakpadagi makhoi punmaktu unna kupsilaga makhoi si lekhidabane. Today ngasi makti Everest expeditions are almost commonplaces. Hujik oiriba phibam sidadi Mount Everest karu babese icham chamba wafam ama phongdong na bcha manakre on a single day in 2003 gi adumba nongma numit amada 118 people were reported to have made it mi cham ga tara nipal na ka khibagi pau leire. Some veteran climbers have criticized the commercialism and the circus atmosphere surrounding Everest climbing. Aduna ariba halloer ba chingaru kharanadi makhoi adumba yamna akoigi circus ki mongda ngasai commercialized tauba sel tananabagi mongda chatharakba sibu pen da nungai tabadi adumak phongdoknarakli. Tough, rope-bound 6 feet 5 inches tall with a long, leathery and wrinkled face, Sideman was an intelligent but unsophisticated man with tigerish confidence on a mountain but little taste for formal social doings. Mahaki appearance, mahaki mapan thongdi uba matamda mahaki saktam ase adumba foot 3 inch manga wangba yamna marep wangba amadi ngasagi mamai chairung taba akoigi mi oina di yamna hei singba aduga masakta di ngasagi akoigi min hek ubada tona tinaba digi akoigi dro toba misak oina di tawrktaba aduga mi gasu tona tinadna ngasai kaya pulaktaba misamadi oirak lami. For many years after the Everest climb, he continued to list his occupation as beekeeper, his father's pursuit, and he preferred to be known as Eid. Adumba Mount Everest karur matung sahi kayadi mahagna mahaki sinphamoina ngasagi mapa puna chatharamba khoyokpagi sinphamuda mahag yam kuina chalami aduga mahag masana masabu miyamna ngasagi Eid haira khangnaragana hena nungaijai. During the Southern Hemisphere summer of 1957 to 58, a British Commonwealth team that included Sir Edmund crossed the Antarctic on an overland route that traversed the South Pole. Adumba 1957-58 ta akoigi Southern Hemisphere summer amada asagi chatkhiba khongchar amada habitare a British Commonwealth team ngasai British ki adumba loilam chan khiba lebak sing adubu Commonwealth countries kawi haiba adumba sing adugi pullaga ngasai akoi Antarctic ocean lan bagi khongchar ma pangthoki haiba khongchar sida ngasai overland route harigadi akoi laikang mathakta chatkhiba khongchar haiba tare maduda ngasai South Pole tamna channa nabagi khongchar adu dasu 1957-58 da tawa sin khiba adumba thorang khiba khongchar adu dasu Edmund Hillary yauki and no one had attained the South Pole since Amundsen in 1911 and no one had ever crossed Antarctica aduga loinana ngasai South Pole yaukiba misa asi 1911 da Amundsen hairibasi natana kanana su yaukidri aduga Antarctica lan khibasu kanasu lan khidri. In 1960, Sir Edmund led a highly publicized but unsuccessful search for the abominable snowman. Adumba masagi adventure da yamna khoida jaba thawai yaujaba misawai bana 1960 da ungi mafam da phangba akoigi miyoi ba makhal amani haina longna ba akoigi snowman amaka thina na bagi suma mai di pakhi da ba khongchara masuma pangthoki. In 1977, he led a jet-boat expedition titled Ocean to Sky from the mouth of the Ganges River to its source. Aduga 1977 na adumba isingi koigi lambelda motorboat tongaga ngasagi Ocean to Sky haiba khongchara mamana mingtholaga koigi Ganga turel degi koi Himalaya chingdol tamna chatpagi khongchara masumana pangthoki. In 1985, accompanied by Neil Armstrong, the first man to set foot on the moon, Sir Edmund flew a twin-engine skyplane over the Arctic and landed at the North Pole. He thus became the first to stand at both poles and on the summit of Everest. Aduga 1985 tuna 1969 da tha leibak ta khongdaruba adumba misak Neil Armstrong ga loinana mahna akoigi twin engine nadra ngasagi mi ani khaktang tongbe aba adumba plane amada tongaga ngasagi Arctic Ocean lan chalaga North Pole yorba misa asu mahana hanboi ki adura hairiba North Pole amadi South Pole yorba amadi Mount Everest ki matol yogiba ngamba misaksi huji phawda Edmund Hillary khaktang ngairi. In 2007, he was reported to have suffered a fall during his visit to Kathmandu. Aduga 2007 dadi mahak sagi karumba khudong thiba lawak thiba madagi chingka bada tarkpagi paw madi mahak laiki. Sir Edmund wrote or was a co-author of 13 books including No Latitude for Error 1961 Hodder and Stephenson about the Antarctic experience mahakna lyric atop writer ga loina na borsu natraga mang masana borsu No Latitude for Error haibasi ikibani magna Antarctic chatpa matamda thengnakiba magi khudongcha da ba amadi maduda phangba magi koi experience haibitare madu phongdokpa lyric amakak magna yawba No Latitude for Error haibasi yawba lyric punna mag traundo igre. He also formed a foundation, the Sir Edmund Hillary Himalayan Trust, which raised millions and built schools, clinics, airfields, and other facilities for the Sherpa villages in Nepal. Aduga loina na mana ngasai trust ama semduna akoigi Nepal de leiriba khudongcha da ba chingkaroi kayagi macha masu sing na tamjana ba school college amadi natraga laing sang oi ba clinics amadi ngasai makhoida phangba yaba khudongcha ba piba yaba kaya lehenba adumba thorang paikhan na bagi trust amasu mangna semgat ki. For many years, Sir Edmund was president of New Zealand's Peace Corps and an important voice in his country's conservation efforts. Aduga loina na ngasai akoi bipibam kannana bagi yokna na bagi dongta lawba adumba yamna masak naiba misal masu mangna oikirami loina na ngasai New Zealand Peace Corps hari mokoi adumba New Zealand lamdamadugi akoi cadet singi Mahana President to Pham Pairami. Edmund Percival Hillary was born on July 20, 1919 in Chuakau near Auckland, the son of Percival Augustus Hillary and Gertrude Clark Hillary. Mahaki mama pai maming makataba sidapalli aduga mahakna pokhibana 1919 July tang kun da pokhibani. Hairiba July kun chimakta da ngasagi 1969 da akoigi Neil Armstrong na tha da khongda ki ba tha namit ni ko July 20 haibse simso ko khangin bada dum nongai ba yabni. His father was a commercial beekeeper. Mahaki mapasi khoyok laga ngasagi akoigi sinpham khoyok pagi sinpham naiba misamani. And Invan and a younger brother Rex Ford worked on the family farm adum mayumgi family business da adum sarugi adun lakhi mahaki manau Rex Ford kobosiga loinana. Invan began climbing as a youth. While attending public schools in Auckland, he went to Auckland University and served in the Royal New Zealand Air Force as a navigator during Second World War. After the war, he took climbing instructions from leading alpinists, began to specialize in ice climbing techniques, climbed in the Swiss Alps, and got to know British mountaineers with Himalayan experience. Aduga loina na ngasagi magna nahaw ringa matamdagi akogi Auckland da maki makata na like sisu tamlaga aduga mana akogi New Zealand gi adumba Air Force da mak join tawraga thabak tawraga maksi Second World War da phawba ma sai navigator moina navigator haragadi akogi plane da akogi lam maikei tak na ba tawba thabak hai tare adumba sinpham mak yaurami mak purami. After the war, adigi lan yauror matungda mana ngasagi chingkaroi Mount Alps hariba Europe ki adumba awang chingdol adugi karuba kaya adigi mana karamna kamaina kabuno adigi ungi chingmai da kabana kamaina kabuno habina chingba mayam mana tips mayam mana loksing mayam talo matungda mang masamaksu chingkaba haurkibani aduga Britain gi adumba chingkaroi kaya adigi na ngasagi Himalaya chi kamaina kagadigi habisi ki ma chapchana ma loksing tan ki Adu matungda magna Nepal da phut lising kun hen baching kaya kaba hauraki hariba asumba ching kaya kaba gi mingchachi sumsum maming tarakpui matungina as his reputation grew, Hunt chose him as a member of the 1953 expedition that conquered Everest. Adum namai maming chatpagi kenosi sum hengalakpana 1953 da Colonel Cecil Halna luching duna chatkiba akogi khongchat adugi mahaksu member ama oiduna Mount Everest su mahna yawang amjakibani. Using global positioning system equipment and expedition sponsored by the National Geographic Society and others, revised the elevation of the summit upward by 7 feet from 29,028 to 29,035. Asai adumba satellite ki khutang da satellite ki mateng lauraga asai khongchat asida makoina yawrugodoriba chingdol adugi awang ba si matam chupada koigi hongba naidana leite hongba nai aduna ahan bada phut lising kumapan ga sumna kunipal oramadu makoina kaga da matam adudadi phut lising kumapan ga sumna kuntrama oikirame. Standing atop that pinnacle in 1953 was an experience Edmund would recollect many times in lectures and quick conversations. Adumba mahana 1953 da akoigi khwaidi wangba chingdol adu yaurubagi experience adu mahana mahaki lectures kaya da amadi mahana aten ba wari watai chanawi thorum kaya da toina mahana panjai. The whole world around us lay spread out like a giant relief map, he told one interviewer. I am lucky man, I have had a dream and it has come true, and that is not a thing that happens often to man. He died of heart failure in 2008. Adum na ngasai mahana chingdol adu matol da lepaga u khiba sakta madu mahagna noma interviewer amakakta panki madudi prithvi gi akhoi laimai si prithvi gi sakta mase chaw gro map amagum pak san na ngasai gi leibugum mahna u khi haina mana panki aduga loina mahna phongdok lami madudi mahag asi yamna marai phoba misama oi maramdi mahna mangjakhiba manglana do magti ningba thungba ngamki aduna magya marai phobane na mana interview adu panki haiba asama tawraga manglana mangjaraga mangphauna bangamba bese miyoi bakanglupta toina thokpa thodokti natti hadra magna yamna mag masamakti marai phobane habesi phongdok chaki aduga 2008 ta mahak yonadi heart ki laina amada mahak se shi kirami asumna tawna sagi the Saga of a mountaineer and explorer have what you see loshile.